Wanna be where you are, once you look the way, boy. Be my superstar, your love is all it takes, boy. Wanna be where you are.
And hello and happy new year. I'm back with an art journal page I've recently done, and I'm still in my new room, and I've bought myself some new lights, so forgive me if if it's all looking a bit shadowy and things like that, but I'm still working on the setup at the moment. As you can tell, when I've got wet paint on, the lights are shining. It's been looking a bit bright and shiny, you can't see what I'm doing. Anyway, what I'm doing here, I've taken the Dylusions, and in my Dylusions journal I'm giving it just a coat of blue paint just to give it a first covering. Then I've taken a sea sponge, dipped it in some aqua, and though you can't see it very well, I've stippled the paint onto the blue, so we've got kind of a bluey green colour. I'm trying to get some more texture into my pages, some visual texture, but I don't want the colours to be too different from each other, so the kind of the bluey green, the aqua and the blue sit close together on the colour wheel, so they blend together. What I'm doing here is I've taken a stencil I've got from Aall and Create. I'll put up a materials list, and using the turquoise paint along with some white paint just to lighten it up, I'm then dabbing some paint. You can't see the paint because it's off camera, that's why my hand's dabbing away off to the left up there, and I've added a bit more visual texture by adding the stencil. Okay, now I don't want the stencil design to be too powerful, so I'm taking the whole colour back by getting some glaze, some medium glaze, and adding that to the original blue colour that I did for the base. So I've kind of got a transparent blue colour, or translucent blue colour, that's going over it. Again, you can't really tell because it's all shiny. However, days later, when the whole thing's dried and I come back to the journal, you can see that it's a more muted effect, and overall you still get this idea that it's a blue page, but it's got a little bit of extra to it. So I'm trying to experiment, because you know how I normally do backgrounds, just a nice plain background, because I want it bold and to stand out. Anyway, want to try things. It's New Year, try new things. Here I am drawing an outline of a model with a pencil. You can't see it, of course, through the lighting. And I'm using a PaperArtsy Fresco chalk paint. Now, the great thing about this particular chalk paint, as well as its lovely colour, is that it's very opaque and very easy to sort of like cover up the colour below it. So, if it was more translucent, I'd have to put layer upon layer, but this is brilliant. It's a one coat. It's a lot easier. So here I am taking my brush, and I'm painting within the pencil lines that I've created for myself. Anyway, you're not going to see the whole thing. Here we go, all done and dusted with the magic of editing. And that's the outline. Now, I had drawn this image on a scrap of paper. Well, I say drawn, I sketched it out on a piece of paper. This is not straight from my imagination. This is, well, from my imagination to begin with on the piece of paper, and then use that to sort of like draw it into my art journal book. Okay, so now that I've painted it, I can start outlining it with my black Posca pens. And you know, I like to start it with the first line doing, but as you'll see, I prefer the outline, the outer outline, to be much thicker than this pen gives. But I don't want to use a thick pen. I like using a slightly thinner pen and just building it up. So here I am now that I've got the initial black line down, is thickening it up again. Okay. Going around the whole creature. Not a lot I can say about it, although I do hope you can't hear the food processor going on downstairs. Seems like Nick is doing some cooking tonight. Right, okay. The next thing is getting a Posca white pen, and luckily these are also quite opaque, so I can fill in the eyes with white. I mean, I know the other way is just not to paint it, but you know, initially with the purple, but that wouldn't work because it would have been blue underneath. So yes, I've painted on with white. Ignore my babbling. And after that, I think the only other thing I've decided I will colour in at this stage are the horns and the teeth. I'm not going to do them in white, I'm going to do them in yellow. Makes it look more monsterly if it's in yellow. I don't know why. That's not a rule, but in my opinion, I like my monsters to have slightly yellow fangs and horns. Anyway, from a design point of view, it keeps the two in unity. Ah yes. Now that it's all dried, I mean that's why I was a bit of time. I can start adding the pupils to the eyes, made him a bit cross-eyed, a bit wonky, just to make him a bit more of a goofy monster. I'm not trying to go for a realistic and frightening looking one here. I'm just being a bit on the goofy oddball side. Probably how I was feeling when I was making the page. Okay, so adding a little bit more detail. Not a brilliant amount, just to give a little bit more 3 dimensions with my black Posca pen. Okay, it's looking good, looking good. And now to add the shadow. Taken a purple, sort of like Posca pen, and it's the closest to the colour that I initially put down, but it is darker. Yeah, I mean you can get away with colours not matching too much, but it was a darker purple. It suits my purposes. So I can add in my shadow just to give the creature a little bit more 3D oomph, make it look a little bit more like street art that you see. As you can tell, it's like I'm imagining that the light is coming from the right to the left hand side, so that it's the left that is in shadow. And of course anything like under the horns or under the mouth I'm going to also, and around the eyes, I'm going to just darken up just to give it a little bit more detail. I like dark eyes on my monsters, they do gives a bit more of a creepy edge to them. Even though it's goofy, a little bit creepy, a little bit goofy. Okay, so just adding a little bit of shadow to the arm there. Okay, I mean we're not talking lots of detailed shadow here, just enough to make it stand out from the background. Okay. So now I have my Posca pens again. I thought I was going to do something else, and I'm adding in the shadow into the horns. See what I mean about not using the exact colour? I'm not using a darker yellow. What I've done is used an orange instead. Very effective. Still looks like it's a shadow. I've just gone a colour darker rather than a shade of the yellow darker. And now that it's all dried, I can go back over with my black pen, a finer black pen, and add a little bit of detail. In this case I'm adding some details back to the eyes, and around the horns I'm going to add some shading just to really emphasize the highlights. Okay. I actually do like the scribbly effect when you do that on horns. And of course I'm doing it to the fangs as well. Now a few more shadows to the and details to the eyes and to the claws. I'm just adding a few lines in. And I've decided to dress it up. Rather than make him look like a play monster, I'm going to give myself a polka dot monster. So I started off with, I've got 2 pinks, and I'm starting off with the darker pink first. And I'm just randomly painting circles onto the creature's belly. And again, to give a bit of unity, I've put a few dots on the top of his head too. And then when all that's dried, I'm going to be taking a lighter pink and putting some smaller circles in the middle. Again, I'm experimenting with adding more visual texture, so instead of just 1 pink, I'm adding 2 pinks. Tends to bring the detail out a bit, visually brings the design out, while still remaining kind of a clean and simple look. Anyway, this is what I thought I was going to be doing earlier on. I need to sort of like give myself a bit of a template for where the text was going to go. So I laid on a blank piece of paper, folded it where the book join was, and then again I'm folding it down to where the arm is. And what that will give me is that blue is the template for where that blue space is. And I'm going to emphasize that a bit more because I'll just get myself a pencil and draw the area to which I can then start adding and designing where I want to put the journaling, because now I know that within that left hand space is the area where I can fit journaling. I don't have to guess it. So what I've done for this particular idea is I'm drawing some rectangles where I can pencil in my journaling. And I think I got a little bit too fixated here on getting a dark pencil so that it could be seen on video. The trouble is when I started erasing the black lines, I think these lines were a bit too dark, so they didn't erase too well. I think next time I will use I think this is a 2B pencil, and next time I'll go to a HB. Anyway, my quote is now written within those boxes. I've taken this Ecoline Watercolour Ink and a scrappy brush, and now I'm going to paint the whole journaling block in yellow because I don't particularly want a white background, it's a bit too stark. When it's dry, which doesn't take too long at all, I take my Posca pen and using the pencil marks I made, I'm filling in the details, and I've started thickening the text out as well. And next I'm going to outline the boxes from the pencil tips, and because I'm going to be cutting these out and I'm not going to cut so finely, I got a thicker black pen and I'm now thickening around those borders, so it just makes it easier when I cut it out. I'm going to have this nice thick black border. And I'm hoping that by the time I've cut all those pieces out, they will fit nice and snugly into the space that was left. Okay, this is the moment of truth, fitting it on and hoping that my idea has worked, and hurrah, yes, it fits. Okay, so I now need to grab my glue, slap it onto the back and put all the pieces down in place. Brilliant. Get my hand covered in glue as I slap it on. Now the space to the right, that top right, is, from a balance point of view, is looking quite stark. It needs something to balance the page. Your eye gets a sense for it. Look just too empty. And I'd recently learnt this doodle. It's not a doodle I've come up with. It's one I found online. I loved it. It's like these little cups fitting into each other. So I drew those on in Posca Pen, and then again with the pink, filled them in. The pink that I use on the monster, so I'm keeping it all together still. And there we go. A little bit of zooming in, and we're going to do a little bit more zooming in again because I got the editing a bit wrong there. But anyway, it gives you a nice good look.